reason we're here, I'm required by state law to have public comment. Anyone in the audience who wishes to address us on any subject that's within our jurisdiction and purview is welcome to do so. Seeing nobody from the public and knowing that no city employee would dare get up under public comment, I'll assume public comment is completed. We'll go to number 2.
Say something, John, just for the heck of it.
Discussion and possible action regarding an increase in landscape maintenance assessment district.
The reason it was put on is because I've received a couple calls from people over in the Brentwood area who are concerned about their LMADs going to be raised and us not taking care of the current LMADs because we don't, well, I'll let John explain it. But I guess the biggest issue is in order to raise the LMAD fees in that area, it has to go to a vote of the people, which concerns me a bit. And then it also concerns me that we're not maintaining the LMADs, which would make the neighborhoods look very poor and run down, which we shouldn't do. So as a council, I think we need to decide what are we going to do. Are we going to take it to a vote to raise it? How much do we need to raise it? And I think that's something we all need to look at, how much it needs to go up and what's happened with the other LMADs. So
play out this just a minute. I agree with your statement, but we've changed the landscaping rules a bit in the city. Are we looking at anything about changing the way we do these landscape maintenance districts? Might now be doing some watering or doing some things that maybe if we switch over to our new policies that maybe that will change something?
Well, I guess John can answer that. We are.
That's the question.
I think we are. Aren't we starting to go with some xeriscape or that type of scaping for the LMADs?
There are some areas that have that, but still, everything that's in our LMADs right now is all drought tolerant, type of material. So we prepared a booklet that has all the type of plants that we allow here in the high desert and would work on that. So if you notice, we don't have any turf or anything in our actual LMADs. There is a little bit still on 7th Street there and in Green Tree, but those are the only places. Everything else is
which
all
they
just
have
on
been
drip
taking
systems.
out. If you notice, they've been taking a lot of the turf out and some of those LMAD areas and the dividers.
Right.
So.
Are we discussing all the LMADs or just strictly Brentwood right now?
There are, out of all the LMADs, there are 4 LMADs that were formed prior to passage of, I think it was Proposition 187, which then made it so that everybody, anytime you raise a fee, you have to go out and get a vote of the public. And as we started to grow again, and it became obvious that we had to start forming new LMADs, we went to the city attorney, and Mr. Green advises that there is a new rule where you can, when you implement them, you can implement them with the rule where it raises every year automatically based on the construction cost index. So the other 8 LMADs and DPADs that we have automatically have a kicker in there. So it adjusts each and every year, and we don't have to go out for a vote. But Eagle Ranch, Brentwood, the original citywide, as well as Old Town, are all locked in, and they haven't had their rates raised since 1989. And that's been the problem. And back in September of 2003, we started to discover that we were running out of money. And we had letters prepared to go out to all the different those 3 LMADs, and just as an information one, letting them know that this was established back in 1988, that the council approved the LMADs, and then in 89 their fees were set. And since then, things have gone up. Water costs, electrical costs, labor, everything that is associated with that has continued to go up, while their fees haven't gone up. And that there's 2 things that could happen if we could either go out, possibly go out for a vote and to raise the fees and to keep the level up that they've had all these years, or if they chose not to raise the fees, then there's going to have to be a reduction in the services, because by law you cannot take any money from any other fund to put into an LMAD. It has to be self-supportive. And so we sent the first one out to citywide, and I believe there were 5,490 ballots sent out. Only 25% returned, for a little over 1,400, and it was a 2-to-1 vote of those that returned to reduce the services and not raise the fees. So it was 344 said they were in favor of raising fees, 731 were in favor of reducing the services and not raising the fees, and then another 24 that were indecisive and didn't say one way or the other. So at that point, we didn't even bother going out, to Eagle Ranch in Brentwood. I think also at that time, too, there was finance found that there was additional funding available for those, and so the emergency for those didn't hit us at that time. But we knew it was coming, and so we started reducing the fees just very, very little. I mean, not the fees, reducing the services maybe like 10%, just try to start stretching this out. And then in January of last year, I sent out a letter to everybody in all 4 of those LMADs and stated that the time was coming, that excuse me, let me find the letter here. Yeah. Again, reiterating that in 1988, the City Council had initiated the use of landscape maintenance assessment districts, went through everything, informing them that there's 3 or 4 original LMADs that were established prior to Proposition, not 187, it was 218, I beg your pardon. I saw you look at me when I said that. So, and that because of that, there hadn't been a cost in over 15 years, why everything else has increased. And that city staff is currently reviewing options for resolving the funding shortage, and further information will be provided in the near future, and it may involve a balloting procedure to obtain approval to increase the fees or permanently reduce services. And we told them back in January of 2007 that immediately we were going to reduce services by 50%. So they were put on notice back over a year ago that they were going to have the fees reduced.
That's where I got that.
I mean, have their services reduced because of the fact that there was no money. And that's what's happened now. Over the time, all of a sudden, plant material dies. We can't replace it. The weeding isn't getting done as often, and trash isn't getting picked up as often. So it's come to a head now where you're starting to have a few people complain in regards to this. So the only option we have now is to go out for a vote to get this. But when we do go out for a vote, and I believe my department's worked with Carol Lee, how they worded it, the new resolution will have, so this will be the last time it ever has to happen, because if they pass it, we're going to put that construction kicker in there, and then that'll allow us to automatically raise the rates every year just based on that construction cost index.
I think in the interest of fairness, you got to do that. I mean,
Right.
people buying homes, especially the second and third go around, they're not familiar with all of this historical stuff.
Right.
And you got to figure that estate people probably have not fully disclosed. And so if they feel that they're paying money for something and they're not getting it, they're righteously going to be offended by that. And if you have a structure, if you've got a defined LMAD that it was of our action, and we change the direction of that LMAD, the longer haul, I think we're going to be a lot safer responding to community and citizen concerns or even complaints by saying, here is the vote of the people. Not just a decision, not just a unilateral decision of the bureaucracy, but a conscious decision of the people, the majority of the people in the LMAD, not fund the cost of this service. And we're simply responding as a city to what the neighborhood vote told us to do.
Right.
I don't see how you can do it any other way.
And just the numbers that I had shared with you on that piece of paper, that's the problem. See, they haven't had anything raised since 1989. So now you're looking at 19 years without an increase. And so when they see this increase, it's sticker shock.
Do you have that increase with you, John?
Yeah, I have it right here. Citywide LMAD was going to be a 49% increase, and that works out to 2.5% increase every year over those 19 years, is what that averaged out to.
You're going to increase it 49%?
49%. That's the lowest of the increase.
What's the dollar figure on that one?
Right now it's $28.14, and it would go up to $42 per house.
Per month or per?
No, per year.
Per year, okay.
That's a year. That goes on the tax bill.
Okay.
The big one is Eagle Ranch. Now, right now it's $147, and it would go up to $264.
I'm going to have to move.
The biggest overall increase, percentage-wise, is Brentwood, and it was established back when it started. Of course, you got to remember back then, it was sitting pretty much empty. There was very little development that went on there, and so based on what was there as far as the landscaping and everything else, it was really this was a false number, because it was established at a little under $70, and it needs to go up to $191 to match what the costs are. And these are just based on our contracts that we have currently with the landscape company for maintenance. You know, it could be very well when that goes out to bid again, there'd be another increase right there. Of course, we'll be able to recoup that if we get it passed, to have that kicker going through every single year. And I guess the reason why Eagle Ranch is so much more the fact that they have fewer lots. You know, it's all based on the amount of footage that's in there, and then divided by the number of lots that are within that district. So that's why they've always had to pay more. They have the bigger entry, they have the street landscaping, you know, the medians going down, and that helps add to it.
Well, I don't think we have a choice but for it to go out to a vote. Now, Carol, it goes out to a vote of just the populace that are in the LMAT area, correct? Not the entire city.
That's correct.
Correct.
I don't think we have a choice, and I think the numbers are going to hurt us going out for a vote. But I'll get back to one of my other issues, and that is, let's say they voted down. What do? Do we just let the LMADs go? We let it weed up and make the neighborhoods look terrible? I mean, I think our responsibility is to ensure our city looks nice. And so what is our answer to that?
Beg your pardon?
Rock, landscape rock.
I mean,
I'm not saying it because of our business.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
saying-
I'm not. Of course, then you have the cost of, you know, the LMADs are put in by the developer.
Well, they are put in by the
They're put in by the
not
developer.
city.
They pay for that. We require them. They are conditioned to put in the landscape maintenance. And then it goes onto the tax rolls of the people as they buy the property, or the developer, if they still own the lots, then they have to pay for it every year. So to do that, then there's the cost of removal and installation of that, and everything. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's supposed to all pay for itself. It's supposed to be
Yeah,
self-supporting.
it should be self-sufficient. It's not in this case, so. But now you can make it self-sufficient. Those are old LMADs, so.
Well, but I think my judgment, the probability of anybody voting for a tax or a fee increase in today's environment is slim and none.
Right.
So I think we have to accept the probable reality, and so, you know, it seems to me that we use the money we have to minimize the effect, both aesthetically and on city resources. And maybe as we put this information out for the ballot, we ought to try to be somewhat specific about what we will have to do. We can't subsidize those things out of the general fund, or every neighborhood in Victorville is going to want us to, whether we have an LMAT or not, do the equivalent. So, you know, whether it's removing the turf, you know, like a one-time expense, like we're doing on the golf course, taking out grass that may not be needed, shrubbery, or, you know, whatever it may be, and replacing it with rock or whatever that becomes a very, very low maintenance. And I think we need to tell the folks that.
Well, it needs to be it needs to be not only low maintenance, it needs to be whatever we do where we don't have weeds growing in it, because that's one of the big issues.
So you may go down your water costs, but now you have costs for your herbicides.
Yeah.
And the constant spraying and going through there. So you may minimize some costs, but you
Do the LMADs
Trade off.
include the paseos?
yes.
See, now that is a real problem, because it's, you know, you got, you know, your curbing and then your wall, and you've got the growth, but we've got some paseos out there that are huge, and I mean, they start getting weeded up, and they just look absolutely terrible when you can't maintain those things. Those are the
they in one of
walkways
these
that,
four?
huh?
Are they in one of these four?
Yes. Oh, yeah, especially Eagle Ranch.
But let me give you just a pure practical issue to deal with. Yeah, I'll use the paseos as an example. if there was a philosophy, if you could get 3 votes on this council to say, well, the Paseos are unique, so we're going to spend city dollars to take care of that, you're going to get a big hue and cry out of people in Green Tree. Both sides of Green Tree Boulevard are dirt. We can't even get the city to put in sidewalks. I've raised that issue for over 30 years, and you know what I'm told? It's your expense. It's not a city expense. So if you take care of somebody's Paseos and you won't put, which in my opinion, we have a huge problem from a handicap and safety standpoint, because there's no sidewalk for people to walk. There's no curb cuts, nothing. And it's not that the city isn't on notice, because I've raised the issue for over 30 years. So I don't know how we deal with that issue. But there's places like that all over town. And then, once you open that door of using the city funds to take care of somebody else's backyard, boy, I tell you, I think it's going to be a terrible public relations issue to deal with.
So what do we do to make sure it doesn't blight the community?
Well,
Can the spraying of herbicides to periodically kill weed growth be anything at all like the cost of water?
No, you're just going to have the initial outlay of costs, and that's, the city attorney's going to have to clarify if you can use money that's not for, that hasn't been generated in order to do the removal and reinstallation of the product, because there would not be enough money. There isn't enough money in the budgets to do that.
well, I have a suggestion on that. We should look at what would be the capital outlay to replace it with low maintenance, and then what would be the ongoing maintenance cost, and then see whether or not the annual revenue stream coming in from the landscape maintenance district would support a financing of that capital outlay.
Yeah, there's going to be a stream of dollars forever,
Right, there's
whatever
current
it's going
stream
to
that's
decrease
going
to.
on. Right. I agree.
Use that stream to finance the capital outlay.
And just
Is that,
putting
I can say, is that legal to be able to use that money, if it was supposed to be for maintenance, to be able to use it for the cat?
That's going to be a problem. We have to look at the formation documents of the OMAD, because those revenues were generated for maintenance costs, and they may have a prohibition on I think we have to look at the formation of the OMAD.
Yeah,
see if they can be
but
used for
that,
capital outlay.
that's a semantics game. I mean, maintenance of what? Maintenance of exactly what was put in 1989, or maintenance of whatever it becomes today? Because let's assume we do nothing.
But it is an O&M cost as opposed to a capital expenditure, and I've got to look at the OMAD docs to see we're allowed to do that.
Well, I guess my question to you then is, who's going to enforce this? Who enforces this issue if we were to use capital, make it a capital?
Chances are nobody will challenge it.
If that is a legitimate legal barrier, then you take that proposal to the voters.
And
Here's your
They
options.
would change that, right?
Your fee doesn't go up, we'll replace the landscape.
Right.
I mean, I know this workshop kind of seemed like a nothing workshop, but as you look at it continually progressing, and it's just getting worse and worse.
We've got to deal with it
Because we
now.
don't do, we don't do anything. We're concerned about Section 8 houses looking bad. We're concerned about neighborhoods looking bad. Then we let the LMADs go, and that just compounds the problem. So we either need to fix it in some way, or the attorney needs to look at it and see, is there some way we can do this? Especially in these areas. I don't say we don't go out for a vote. Let's give the people the first opportunity. But if they don't want it, and I think looking at those dollars, they're not going to want to do it. And then we have to decide what we're going to do.
Yeah, are these big numbers, John? I mean, I don't have a real order of magnitude. I mean, let's just use the Paseos, for example. Roughly, what does it cost to maintain the Paseos for a year?
Well, let's see. I couldn't tell you individually, but I know Brentwood itself, the entire LMAD, which includes all the street landscaping and the Paseos, we're looking at $386,000 annually. I don't have the number of lots, but it would have to. Well, we could turn around and that's what we're looking at. That what we need to have. If you turn around and divide that by the $191, we'd be able to get the. Anybody have a calculator? Real quick. 191 into 386,000. So roughly 2,000.
1,000 piece, right?
Yeah. So, and then the Eagle Ranch, we're looking at $437,000. Of course, that includes, there are a few Paseos in there, as well as there is a little mini park in one of the Paseos there.
The dollars you're giving us now, are those what what's gone up to, or that's
This is
we're
what we would, this is what we need.
Need, okay.
Right.
Okay.
$2,000 increase on a person's house, you're not going to get any votes.
Well, I think that we just have to accept the fact that there's not going to be support in any of those neighborhoods, not sufficient support.
Yeah, you're looking at a $10 a month increase for
I think we
for
owe it to
Brentwood.
them to give them the facts and let them make the decision. In the meantime, Andre's got to decide how far we can go legally,
Right.
which gets back then to Bob's question, what are we going to do? And we need to have that in the material that we're going to share with the voters when we take this to them.
Okay, well, my department will research what the cost would be for removal and installation of the desertscaping, and then in turn, what the fees would be to maintain that in comparison to what we have now.
Can I just give you a real small example? It has nothing to do, I'm going back to rock, and I don't mean to. Please, believe me.
I like rock.
I do too, my whole front yard. I was just going to, and my backyard. My husband and I took all the grass out when we moved in there because he wasn't going to mow and neither was I. Anyway, make a long story short, we've been in there now going on 5 years, I believe. We had our backyard done right away. We have not pulled one weed. We have desert plants with the drippers there. There's not one weed. We don't spray anything because underneath the rock, we put that visqueen. And that's not that expensive if you buy it by the huge roll.
No, I mean, we do the same thing, but you got to remember, you're able to keep people off of that rock.
Oh, no. My two granddaughters are out there playing ball. My dog's out there. He weighs 150 pounds.
A dog that weighs 150 pounds, what the hell kind of dog do you have?
A big dog. He's shepherd.
There's an inherent problem to rock, though, and that's kids. Because they get on it, they throw it, they love to, I don't care where there's rocks, kids
Yeah.
love to pick it up and throw it.
Then you'll have Mr. Rogers in here complaining that people are picking up rocks and throwing it at his house for it to sale.
But
so.
I guess for me, you
I
need,
just use rocks as an example. They have that, what do they call it, chip,
the wood chips, they use that in Oregon a lot.
Just DG.
anything.
Yeah, we'd have to go back
anything.
just to DG, yeah.
Close around. That's what I had in my bag.
What about pulling everything out and putting in artificial turf? No water, no
About
maintenance?
$5
That's
a square
expensive.
foot.
Well, they haven't found a way yet to stop the kids from spray painting it and being able to clean it off. You have to cut it out, and with grass, when they spray paint it, it grows over and you cut it off. That's still been a problem with artificial turf.
About $5 a square foot, the cheapest too, so that's
Yeah,
pretty.
it's very expensive.
Well, we need to come up with some ideas to bring forward, but I agree with Terry, we need to let the voters know. And I think the way we need to let them know is not just in verbiage, we need to show them pictures of what's going to happen. What do they want? Do they want it to be weeds? They want it to be nice, and then break it down somehow dollar-wise like a salesperson would, this is going to cost you 20 cents a day,
Right.
or, whatever the case may be.
Okay.
Maybe we can sell it, I don't know.
And I think that we ought to be willing to spend the money to develop the right materials to mail. I wouldn't try to nickel and dime it. I mean,
Right.
I realize we probably
Understand.
have legal constraints in terms of just using the money raised in the LMAD, but it seems to me that this is a public relations issue for the entire city, and that we should be able to spend general fund monies or special fund monies, as the case may be, in an effort to educate the people as to what their neighborhood is going to become, depending upon the alternative that they select. And let's have a professional portfolio with the necessary photos, and Andre, it's your job to figure out a way to let us do that legally. Don't give us a constraint, give us a
Probably even use.
latitude.
I mean, if you have funds, you could probably use RDA funds, perhaps even help that effort.
Good.
Yeah, because we're not looking at a lot of households, and this is fine to certain
Ooh, you
areas.
just
So
got
it's not the
evil
whole
eyes
city we're
looking,
going to have to
John.
look at. What'd you say?
Depends what you should look at it, yeah, well, I said if you had funds.
See the eval eye? I'm glad I was sitting back.
I didn't see it.
Oh, John just
There
gave
was
him
an
an
evil
evil
look
eye.
going,
The caveat
That's why I
on it,
was
if we
sitting
have them
back.
available.
Approximately zero.
Well, what we should look at, though, and I don't know if it would qualify or not, depends on the income levels of the housing, if there's any way of saying, and when you look at it, if it's any way of saying that these would qualify as moderate income and using some of the loan mod providing condition and preserving housing. I don't know.
Well, that's something you guys all
We're
have.
probably looking at about 10,000 houses.
10,000 houses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go get some of Keith's money. Keith, go get
Yeah.
some of his low and moderate income housing money.
So, 'cause just real quick, doing the numbers for citywide, that's the biggest, 6,000, and then we're 2,000 in Brentwood, and a little less than that at,
Talking figure 50 cents a household per mailer or whatever, so with color mailer or whatever you're going to do.
in the
You're
postage.
talking $5,000. A little more? Not that much?
Water bill.
Because we spend, when we do a mailer for 7,000, it's about 8,000 bucks. That includes postage, though.
Well, the
Put it in the water bill?
water district consolidation mailer, I think
Yeah.
those were less than 50 cents a piece.
Oh, I'm thinking mailing and everything. Yeah, and mailing. right?
Look, it'd be cheap at 50,000. The amount of grief that we will take in a community relations context, and people coming to this podium beating the snot out of us meeting after meeting, I don't think we should nickel and dime the message. I think we ought to develop a professional message, take our best shot.
Will do.
That it?
We made, yeah, that's the direction.
Thank you.
You.
Are we done till 7?
Yeah, what do we do for the next hour and 20 minutes?
I can go back to my office and work.
I was just going to say, I could have brought my own car and went home. Okay. No, I'm glad to stay out of the house for a while.
Thanks, John.
Right.